The piece probably clicked for me. I think through my 20s, I was drinking so much so that I kind of almost write that decade off, sadly, and feel like I needed to catch up. Sorry, there's that truck again. Through my 30s, I think I was fortunate that I didn't probably have to do a lot to keep myself looking okay, although certainly the alcoholism had taken its toll. And I'm like you probably as well. I look back on photos and think, oh my gosh, who is that? And I think it was probably like late 30s. I was just like, I just want to give, well, in fact, it's even before that. It was really when I gave up drinking and I was like, I just want to give everything to my life. And I'd spent a lot of my 20s very suicidal. And I think when I made a conscious decision to put down the alcohol and start doing the work, that's when I kind of was like, okay, I want to live this. And so, and I really believe a lot of it is around mindset. I remember I took up surfing when I was like 33 or something. And a woman that I worked with at the time was like, oh my dear, you're too old to do that. And I remember thinking, what? So I've always thought it's very much around mindset. And just, for me, consciously and very purposely, every single day, I try and throw myself into some kind of counterintuitive situation. And I try and push my body to its absolute limits. And one thing, as I'm getting older in years, my thing is I always want to be the person who says, hey, let's go rock climbing. Okay, yep, let's do it. Let's play squash, which I just started doing. Okay, let's do it. Let's do this. Let's do it. So I'm really pushing myself all the time, whether it be, jumping off a bridge that I recently did in Brunswick Heads with some kids and I loved it, or swinging off ropes with my niece, or whatever it is. On the weekend, I went to Orange Theory to try that out. I've been doing Barry's boot camp. I've got a personal trainer, soft sand running in the mornings, like you name it, I would try it. And my mental and my physical body, in unison are really, really important to me, because that's the only way when I put my health, first, that everything else can flow from that. So yeah, it's so imperative for me. And I feel fitter, and I am fitter and healthier than I've been in my entire life, which I love.
And, another aspect, I guess, of, you mentioned mindfulness, which I completely agree with. And I've tested it on myself. There's no bigger laboratory in my life than my own life. And, and, when you do have that correct mindset, and when you have that age, I don't want to say youthful, because I really think it's ageless mindset, it really expands your life, being ageless, because it means that wherever you are, there's a lot ahead of you, and there's, there might be a lot behind you, but there's so much ahead of you. Yeah. And so when you come, from that point of view, like you said, you can write 36 books, you can launch a new career, you can take a sabbatical, you can retrain, because you don't say I'm midlife, or I'm old, or I'm young, or too young. Too young is also, a very real thing. I remember John McGrath, the amazing real estate expert, and who has been an amazing mentor to me. I remember he said to me one time, Bahar, if you're good enough, you're old enough, because I had massive imposter syndrome as, a young woman. I got my MBA when I was 21, but I didn't fill those shoes. And I was always anxious about proving the reason that I was at the table and I was at the meeting. So that was a really wonderful gift he gave to me as a young person. But now, as someone who's 48, I look to people younger than me and older than me in biological age. But I think being ageless means that, you've got all the time in the world and you can reinvent. On the physical wellness, what did sobriety change in your neurological health, and what can you actually see that's different about you versus people who are still heavily drinking in terms of brain health, mind health, clarity?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, my story is my story and everyone's story is unique. But what's really important for me is there isn't, even though it's been 17 and a half years since I put down the alcohol, there isn't a moment. So for example, last night I was out at dinner with some friends. There was 8 of us. The way to put wine glasses in front of all of us, straight away I turned mine upside down. So there are a lot of inbuilt rituals and routines that I've purposely done throughout the years that I love. And the beautiful thing about that is it constantly is a reminder of, that I still identify all these years later as an alcoholic, even though I haven't been to an AA meeting for 10 years or something. But that is definitely my journey. So I very consciously all the time remind myself, this is the path that I could have gone down, and this is how close I am to, potentially taking that lifestyle back on again. So again, there's not a day that I don't go through where I'm not grateful for where I'm at. What I would say about that is I play with the thoughts. I go, I wonder, interesting, if I drank now, what would I be like? Surely I'm, processed enough and I've dealt with all my demons and understand my triggers and,
Because you went to the
childhood
Hoffman
traumas.
Institute, right?
Yeah, I've been through the Hoffman process twice now.
Because
So
I'd
I've
love
done
to
a
ask
lot.
you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of work on myself, but at the core of it, there isn't a cell in my body that thinks I would ever want to drink again, because for me personally, it's been the greatest gift being able to put down the alcohol and put in the work. And I just, I don't miss it at all. And I've adapted, I think. So the beautiful thing is that, if I go to a wedding or a party or anything, I will be the first one every single time, guaranteed, on the dance floor or dancing on a table or whatever else. And also the vitality piece, I think I used alcohol as a crutch. And, at the time I had a very low self-esteem, no real semblance of who I was or what my purpose was, no emotional intelligence. And so what I did was I drank to mask that and to utilize it as a crutch to give me that Dutch courage or whatever.
What about for neuroplasticity? I mean, you said that, you've got a high energy personality. You're obviously extremely creative and you are prolific also. What have you learned is really great for keeping your mind sharp? Do you have sleep rituals? Do you do Sudoku? Do you do anything to kind of develop your creativity and mind or mindfulness other than meditation?
I think I always kind of describe myself in a business sense as the brand architect. So I'm always the one, like I have no shortage of ideas. So I'm always coming up with, these are what we're going to create, or this is what I'm going to do. Or, I'll put myself into any situation. I mean, the floods, horrible in New South Wales. I mean, we've had a few iterations of this, but let's call it a month ago. I don't have a skill set there, but I jump in. So I try and keep myself active and learning and pushing myself into kind of leadership or creative roles all the time. So I feel like that keeps me kind of alert and on my game. So I mean, I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid, listener to podcasts. I'm kind of always, testing myself and questioning things and bucking the status quo and being curious. In terms of Sudoku and things like that, I haven't yet found the patience or I don't know, I feel like it's probably time to test myself in other ways like that. And actually what I would say to people, and I'm saying this to myself more than anyone right now, is lean into the things where you think, oh, I could be a bit stupid at that, or I don't feel good enough, or I'm feeling like an imposter. Because I think sometimes things are really difficult when we begin, and then I push myself a little bit, and then I'm like, oh, I've got that. Wow, I really surprised myself around that.
And how do you wind down? Because, anyone who's listening to this or watching you can see that you are so on and energetic and on purpose and energized. What happens when the battery starts running low? How do you make it stop at your own kind of control? And how do you re-energize?
It is a great question. So I think that has been very much a lifestyle choice. And after 17 years of having a bricks and mortar office, in April 2018, I closed the office before we were all sent home to work. So I was kind of like accidentally ahead of the curve. But I
You even
feel
wrote
like,
a book about it.
yes, I did work from wherever. And then the now of work.
You manifested it. You manifested the work from home.
Yeah. So I think it's also really for me about recognizing what my strengths and what my weaknesses are. And when I'm on, but I'm also, and then people always think this is a weird thing. There's actually a word for this. I can't think of it, but I'm actually an introvert more than an extrovert. So I kind of, I fuel myself a lot, or it is when I'm sort of by myself or in my own company. Now that can be running on the treadmill at Barry's, or meditating, or being able to curl up at night and read a good book or watch Netflix. But I do a lot of stuff on my own and in my own company, because for me, what I've learned over the years is I can be on a stage in front of 7,000 people or whatever it is, and I can be out there and I can be big and I can be leading from the front with my team, or, jumping into crisis like the floods is probably where I shine the most, ridiculously, because that is not a learned thing. It's an intuitive thing. But then I have to absolutely go back into myself to recalibrate and really go, slow, still, inward, in order to be able to be on and outward. Because all of us, I mean, everyone probably has experienced this at some point, if not right now, like burnout and adrenal fatigue and all of these things I have experienced way too many times, and they are real, and we just cannot run at that optimum level all the time without a holistic approach to our health. And for me, the absolute not negotiables are the things we've discussed: the mindfulness, the meditation, the going inward, the movement, the what I eat, the nutritional stuff, what I put into my body.